Okay, hello everyone, and welcome Olga. Thank you for coming and joining.
Yeah, but we don't see you. Maybe it's coming. Всем
Oh yeah, that's true.
здравствуйте. Да, но мы пока не видим Арна. Yeah. But, okay, now we can see.
So this is our 22nd session, I think, and today I promise we will finish the chapter 4.
Это наша 22-я сессия. И Арне обещал, что сегодня мы закончим такие 4-ю главу.
Good. So please, since this is a Mahayana text and bodhicitta is the essence of it, please develop that bodhicitta, the aspiration bodhicitta, and also, of course, the wish to practice the application bodhicitta.
И давайте в качестве мотивации сегодня зародим нашу бодхичитту, намерение, устремление, конечно, предполагая, что это будет бодхичитта, в итоге станет бодхичиттой применения.
And please do that shortly. And if you feel like, also take refuge to Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha.
Пожалуйста, давайте коротко займемся этим, и если вы чувствуете, что в этом есть необходимость, также примем прибежище в Будде, Дхарме и Санже.
And Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, of course, doesn't have to be something religious. Dharma is the truth, and the Buddha is the expounder of the truth.
И в данном случае Будда, Дхарма и Санха не обязательно должны быть чем-то религиозным. Дharma — это истина, а Будда — это распространение истины, да, это ее проявление.
And the Sangha as supportive friends on our search, on our path, to find that truth.
И Санха — это наша поддержка в поиске, на пути в поисках истины.
Okay, so just a very quick review from also last Sunday. So we are in the middle of chapter 4, and the context is as follows.
И небольшой обзор того, чем мы занимались в прошлый раз. Мы, так сказать, находимся где-то в середине 4 главы. И вот, собственно, контекст, в котором мы находимся.
Basically, here in chapter 4 and 5, we want to practice discipline, which is not like a burden, but it is a good ethical conduct,
И, в принципе, здесь, в главе 4, главе 5, мы хотим практиковать дисциплину, которая не является для нас обузой, а это некое этическое поведение.
And that, and again, that is not like not necessarily a set of rules, but it's just to simplify our life, to avoid things that create suffering for ourselves or others.
И это не обязательно должно быть неким набором правил, а больше это наше желание не создавать причины для страданий для себя и для других.
And for that, we need mindfulness, drenpa in Tibetan, which means that we are not forgetting what to adopt and what to avoid.
И для этого нам необходима осознанность по-тибетски дремпа, и которая нам напоминает о том, что нам необходимо сказать, принять, адаптировать, и что нам необходимо избегать.
And that is will be explained in chapter 5.
И это будет объяснено в 5 главе.
And also we need vigilance, shishin in Tibetan, also explained in chapter 5.
Также нам необходима бдительность, которая также будет объяснена в главе 5.
And that means basically that we always check, what are our body, mind, and speech doing.
И это означает, что мы постоянно проверяем, чем занято наше тело, ум и речь.
And then the last thing what we need is what we discuss in the whole chapter 4 is conscientiousness or carefulness, which is Bhaya in Tibetan.
И последнее — это некая внимательность, скажем так. Вообще-то это также переводится как осознанность, но по-другому можно назвать это внимательностью, которая по-тибетски называется вайо.
So whenever thanks to vigilance, we notice that we might start doing something stupid with body, speech, and mind, then conscientiousness or carefulness has to be applied.
И как только наша бдительность замечает, что нечто глупое совершается нашим телом, речью и умом, как тут же нам необходимо принимать нашу осознанность и внимательность.
And then this conscientiousness, this then means that we remember the benefits of altruistic actions, and we remember the disadvantages of selfish actions, and that helps us then to keep our discipline intact.
И эта осмотрительность, она позволяет нам осознавать всю пользу положительных действий и всю бесполезность, наоборот, вред негативных действий. И это позволяет нам поддерживать эту осознанность.
And within this conscientiousness or carefulness chapter number 4, we are now in the section where we reflect upon the cliches in order to behave more carefully.
И в данный момент в главе 4 мы как раз мы рассматриваем эту самую внимательность, и мы также рассматриваем все наши омрачения, клеши, и что нам необходимо делать, чтобы вести себя более осмотрительно.
And Shantideva is using a very war-like language, like a battlefield, and the kleshas are seen as enemies, and we are fighting with them to gain victory over them.
И вот описывая, рассказывая об этом, Шантидева использует очень много такой военной терминологии, представляя все это в виде некой военной битвы, где нашими врагами являются как раз эти самые клеши, наши омрачения, над которыми нам необходимо одержать победу.
In like Shravakayana, if we have an enemy, the idea is sort of to run away, and avoid the situation altogether. But here in Mahayana, we try to apply an antidote, like we try to fight against the enemies or the kleshas here.
И если в Шравакаяне нам необходимо, скажем так, убежать, то есть избегать подобных ситуаций, то в Махаяне нам необходимо вступать с ними в бой и одерживать победу.
And in Vajrayana, it would be different. In Vajrayana, we would not perceive the kleshas actually as something to get rid of, but we would more try to see the nature of them, and they would not be seen as a problem in itself,
И в Ваджраяне, в принципе, вообще абсолютно другой подход. То есть, если мы будем рассматривать их с точки зрения Ваджраяна, эти омрачения, то мы не будем в них видеть ничего негативного. Вообще они не будут являться для нас проблемой, и содержать в себе проблему.
So we only would need to have the understanding and awareness that what we call klesha is more like a distorted wisdom,
И нам просто необходимо поддерживать осознавание того, что клеша — это просто некая замутненная мудрость.
But here in Mahayana, we try to apply antidotes, and even Shantideva is using actually emotions to overcome the emotions.
Но в Махаяне нам необходимо для того, чтобы, так сказать, победить наше омрачение, нам необходимо применять антидот. И, скажем так, мы используем какую-то одну эмоцию против другой эмоции.
In the sense, we want to create aversion against the emotion so that we are really fighting it and really eliminating it.
То есть до той степени, что нам нужно, так сказать, почувствовать некое отвращение к какой-либо эмоции, и мы боремся с этой эмоцией, пока она полностью не просветляется, не исчезает.
Okay. Thank you. And then if we go to verse 41, here Shantideva is sort of reflecting what he has done,
И если мы обратимся к строфе 41, в которой Шантидева как бы уже осматривает то, что он уже совершил.
So he was basically taking the Bodhisattva vow. He promised to take care of all sentient beings, but he sort of is realizing that he is still not, that when he promised that, he was not really ready for it.
И здесь он как бы размышляет о том, что он уже дал обещание помочь всем живым существам, но когда он пообещал это, он, собственно говоря, не был готов к этому.
He was not ready for it because he was still full of cliches when he took the Bodhisattva vow. So it's actually strange, to make that big promise to be a Bodhisattva if the present state is still so emotional.
И, собственно, когда он принимал этот самый обет Бодхисаттвы, когда он давал обещание, он был совсем не готов к этому, в силу того, что он был все еще полностью полон, ум его был полон омрачений, и вообще это как бы странное дело. Как можно давать обет Бодхисаттвы, когда у тебя столько омрачений и клеш?
And of course, that is an honest set, and so therefore the result, of course, of that reflection is that we understand, yes, we need to reduce our negative emotions so that we can really fulfill that promise we made as a Bodhisattva.
Мы должны по-настоящему, скажем так, уменьшить количество наших негативных эмоций для того, чтобы выполнить наши обязательства, наши обеты.
But on the other
There
hand,
is some technical thing now. There is you're disappearing, Arne. Okay. You know what? Maybe I will stop my video. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think it will be better. Yeah, because I losing you.
Okay.
Okay, 1 second. Yes. Stop sharing my work. Okay, can you still hear me?
Of course, very well.
Yeah, very good. So, okay, let's continue then. It's better.
Okay, but on another hand, it's totally realistic, that of course we have to take the Bodhisattva vow now in that state of kleshas. If we would be a Buddha, we would not need to take the Bodhisattva vow.
And then, so, в то же время это является абсолютно реалистичным, что мы должны как бы именно в данный момент принимать обет Бодхисаттвы. I'm losing. I'm so sorry.
Don't
can
worry.
you repeat? If you can hear me, can you repeat one more the sentence again?
Of course. So at the moment we have these kleshas, and that is sort of, that is a realistic state we are in.
И в данный момент у нас есть эти омрачения, и это есть наше как бы реальное состояние.
And so we are not Buddhas yet.
И мы еще не являемся Буддами.
So therefore we developed, for example, bodhichitta of aspiration, that we aspire to become Buddhas.
И поэтому мы развиваем бодхичитту стремления, потому что мы как бы делаем благопожелания для того, чтобы стать Буддами.
And I was saying a Buddha, of course, doesn't need that aspiration because he is already Buddha.
И, конечно же, он уже является Буддой.
So if you study Prajna Paramita, what we do at the moment here, actually, where I am, yeah, it is said that the Buddhas don't have that bodhicitta of aspiration because they don't need it, because they are already Buddhas,
И если вы изучаете Праджна Парамита, тем, чем мы здесь сейчас занимаемся, там, где я нахожусь.
And also when we remember Tsongtse Khyentse Rinpoche's teachings on Madhyamika,
она им просто не нужна.
And also then when we remember Tsongtse Khyentse Rinpoche's teaching on Madhyamika, it's here Khyentse Rinpoche also said that as a Buddha you don't have like aspiration or intention because it is very dualistic.
И если вы вспомните учение по Мадхьямике, и в частности учение, которое давал Кhyentse Ринпоче, то он не раз повторял, что устремления не нужны Буддам в силу того, что они у них, Будда не является в устремлении и благопожеланиях в силу того, что это достаточно двойственность, то есть это является что это, скажем так, является двойственностью.
Okay, so therefore that is totally normal. We are on the path, and therefore we are imperfect. Therefore in other words, we have cliches, and so in that state we take the Bodhisattva vow because we want to improve.
Мы имеем все эти омрачения, и что мы несовершенны, и мы принимаем обет Бодхисаттвы для того, чтобы развиваться и идти по пути.
And but still, like in verse 42, Shantideva is thinking, but still maybe it is crazy or stupid or mad, to even think like that somebody that is so full of kleshas like me can aspire to become a Buddha.
Но в то же время в строфе 42 все равно Шантидева выражает некие сомнения. Может быть, я, который так настолько полон всех этих омрачений, может быть, мне не стоит проявлять, так сказать, устремляться для того, чтобы выказывать такие устремления.
So he's maybe doubting, if maybe he has overestimated himself, when he took the Bodhisattva vow.
И он высказывает некие сомнения, что, возможно, он переоценил себя, когда он принимал обет Бодхисаттвы.
But then he is also saying the last two lines here, but since now he has taken the Bodhisattva vow, and that is really a great thing to do, he is better continuing with it and is trying to do his best to overcome his kleshas so that he can fulfill the promise.
И в то же время, вот как бы последние две строки 42-го строфы посвящены тому, что в то же время, возможно, это хорошо, что он принял этот самый обет Бодхисаттвы, что таким образом он приложит все условия, чтобы превозмочь все свои омрачения.
And so therefore Shantideva is ready to practice also diligence and courage, to on the path to Buddhahood, even though he is full of kleshas.
И таким образом он готов практиковать преданность и мужество для того, чтобы, как бы смелость, для того, чтобы преодолеть все свои омрачения на этом пути.
But then, of course, if we remember the Buddha nature teachings, then of course we can accept that that is doable, because even though we are full of kleshas now, we are still endowed with the Buddha nature, so therefore it's totally reasonable, and we can be optimistic, to do that.
И если вы помните учение по природе Будды, да, о природе Будды, то вы, конечно же, понимаете, что они как раз дают нам ту самую надежду, что даже мы полны природой Будды, которая, собственно,
Okay, and then verse 43, there again Shantideva is now saying, okay, the antidotes against the cliches really have to be applied, as in a battlefield, we have to overcome the cliches. Is Olga still there?
усилия как на поле боя для того, чтобы, то есть подобно как полю боя, скажем так, сражаться, чтобы преодолеть свои омрачения.
And therefore here in the second part, Shantideva is saying, so therefore he's using, these for the time being, he's using even his negative emotions, like his aversion towards the kleshas as the path and as the antidote.
Говорится о том, что Шантидева использует... yeah, do you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you.
The last sentence again, I lost it.
And here, in this last two lines, Shantideva is saying, so in order to fight the battle, basically, he's using aversion as an antidote towards the kleshas,
Hello.
I can't hear you so
Arne?
properly. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Same for me. I don't know what to do. It's really upsetting. But
if it's not working, then it's fine. Then we just try in English only.
Yeah. If I will try to catch on when I can, but if I losing, so I'm just leaving it. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, don't worry. I think when I see the names, I think most of them speak English anyway. Yeah.
I would just say it in Russian. Просто у меня, к сожалению, сегодня очень плохого качества связь, и поэтому я прям теряю куски целые того, что говорит Арне, поэтому, чтобы не так сказать, не задавать лишние паузы, я буду переводить то, что я слышу, потому что ты не уловил. И получается, если я не слышу, просто будем слушать, понимать по-английски. Okay.
Okay, I just continue then in English. Don't worry.
Okay.
So my point here in 43 was the last two lines, I mentioned that earlier already, that here in the Mahayana, we practice the antidote against the kleshas, and here Shantideva is using even disturbing conceptions like anger or aversion against the kleshas in order to overcome them. That is here the idea in 43. And actually here I copied like a verse by the 13th Dalai Lama, which is a nice verse, and it's not I couldn't find it again in the internet, but luckily I found it here. It's a little bit long. But the point is, you know, what His Holiness the 13th Dalai Lama is saying, that the Bodhisattvas are like warriors, but they are never fighting against any enemies, you know, that are humans or animals. But the only thing that they are fighting are their inner delusions, you know, their cliches, their self-grasping, their self-centeredness. That is the only thing they fight against.
Okay, so let's again translate.
Okay, then try.
И здесь Арне приводит цитату его святейшества 13-го Далай-ламы о том, что бодхисаттвы подобны могущественным воинам, но они никогда не борются с врагами, которые, так сказать, воплоти, то есть живыми существами. Они борются со своими внутренними заблуждениями и омрачениями.
Yeah, and these inner enemies, you know, these delusions should be fought with. You know, one should fight with them because they're the ones, you know, that entangle us in confusion, you know, and in pain and frustration.
И как раз вот эти самые внутренние наши заблуждения являются нашими главными врагами, с которыми необходимо бороться, потому что они и запутывают нас, и вводят нас в заблуждение, и смущают наш ум.
And therefore, the job here of the Bodhisattva is always to harm these cliches or confusions, but never any living being.
И как раз вот задача бодхисаттвы в том, чтобы наносить удары или вред как раз этим самым заблуждениям и клешам, но ни в коем случае живым существам.
Because the living beings or sentient beings, they are the object of compassion, you know, of kindness, patience, and respect for the Bodhisattvas.
Потому что живые существа являются как раз объектом сострадания, доброты, уважения со стороны бодхисаттвы.
So, and here the Dalai Lama is saying, because he has that mother-like love and compassion towards all sentient beings, the Bodhisattva is a real hero, you know, who is, with a lot of gentleness, you know.
Проявляя любовь. Okay.
Yes, Olga.
Yeah, let's continue. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, here calmly or with gentleness, you know, these bodhisattvas are not afraid and disturbed by any difficulties or hardships, you know, to bring happiness and peace in the world. So that is why they are the real heroes. That is what he was saying. Okay. Yeah, really, don't worry about the translation today then.
Okay. Yes, so I will. So it's better.
Okay, then we come to verse 44. And it says, it would be better for me to be burned, to have my head cut off and to be killed, rather than ever bowing down to the ever-present kleshas. So here still we have the battle and language. And so Shantideva is saying, yeah, that is really the most important thing to do, you know, not to be the victim or the slave of the kleshas. And that is even more important than being alive, basically, you know. And so that whatever happens in the fight, you know, he will not give up. And then in 45, then it is saying, common enemies, when expelled from one country, simply retire and settle down in another. Though when their strength is recovered, then they return. So just these lines. And here again, that is a good, or not, yeah, that is not yet the good news, but the good news will follow. But here, Shantideva is saying how the common enemies are functioning, you know. If you are victorious over them, you know, and you expel them, you know, then they will run away. And then they gather somewhere, you know, they in another country, for example, in another land, in a hiding place. But then they group again, you know, and they maybe find other gangs, and then they will return. And because they have regathered their strength. So that is also a reason why like fighting against external enemies like other humans is not really a sustainable solution. But the good news is here in the end of verse 45, if we gain victory over the kleshas, then they will be banned forever, because if we have the realization, they don't have any ground to reappear anymore, because we don't have any confusion in our mind, you know, because we don't have any distraction. And distractions or confusions are the ones that keep the kleshas alive. But if we overcome these confusions and distractions because of the right view of emptiness, then these kleshas will never ever come back again. They can never regroup, never re-strengthen, and never, fight back again. Okay, Demetrius asking, but what the point in losing this probably precious human body due to the kleshas is not what the point in losing? I think here in verse 44, of course, I guess Shantideva is trying to be very provocative here, or he is provocative here, and he just wants to point out, you know, how harmful the kleshas are, because it's because of them that we are suffering, and that we will suffer in the future. They will lead us to future suffering in different realms. So therefore, they are really problematic. Doesn't mean that we should easily let go of our precious human body or precious human life, because this precious human life is a very good condition to overcome more and more kleshas. Of course, I totally agree with that point. On the other hand, you know, if we don't use our precious human life to overcome kleshas, it is actually not a precious human life anymore. Because then there's no preciousness, you know, if we don't improve, if we don't tame our minds or train our minds or eliminate the kleshas. So therefore, I think that could be understood like that, the whole preciousness of our human existence is that we have the ability to overcome kleshas, and that we actually do it. That is actually what makes our life so precious. I would answer like that today. Okay, and then 46. Please, Dimitri, if you think that was not a proper answer, please continue to ask or debate. And here in 46, then we talk about the kleshas again. You know, they are here called deluded, disturbing conceptions. You know, sometimes called afflictive emotions or whatever. And here we are coming back to the point that was raised in 45, and also that we talked last time, you know, when Pallavi was asking how to really overcome the cliches like permanently, to really get rid of them, then the only answer is the recognition of emptiness. That is the only thing that really works. Maybe you remember last time I was talking about shamatha. That shamatha is helpful to maybe calm down the mind, that the emotions and cliches and confusions are not too wild and too disruptive. But shamatha is only like this water in a bucket that is getting clear because you don't stir it up, so therefore all the dirt or the cliches, they can sediment, and then for the time being the water is getting calm and clear. But as long as the sediment is there still deep down in the water, the sediment can always be stirred up again because it's still in the bucket. So therefore, shamatha is good. It helps us to calm down the mind and create that sediment of cliches. But then once the mind is more stable, then actually it's time to apply vipassana to really get out of the sediment, to really eliminate these cliches. Like Jigme Khenso Rinpoche was saying, shamatha is really important before you can shoot with vipassana, like example of Wilhelm Tell, who puts this apple on the head of his son, I think it was. And so first Wilhelm Tell needs to have the shamatha, this undistracted single pointed focus, on the apple, and then he can shoot the vipassana thing. Without the shamatha first, without the focus and calmness and one-pointedness, it would be very dangerous, to start shooting. So therefore, first we need the shamatha. Therefore, also Shantideva is teaching the 8th chapter first, and also in Uttara Tantra Shastra, this is explained like that. Shamatha needs to be there first. That is the base, that is the foundation, because that clears the mind, calms the mind. But then you can do the vipassana or laktung. And so here, when we talk about the first line, then if we have the wisdom, if we have the vipassana or the eye of wisdom, what is written here, then the cliches will be dispelled from the mind, and you can ask, where will they go? And here basically we have the answer that they will not go. I mean that there's not a place where they will go to. It's just like if there's darkness in a room and you switch on the light, or you open the curtain and the sun comes in, then in one instant, the darkness in the room will be eliminated and will be gone. So that is the idea here, and you will not find any place where the darkness has gone. And it doesn't even matter if the darkness was there since 10,000 years or something. I think that is a classical example. But the darkness doesn't take a long time then, to remove the darkness. And it's not that the darkness has to go to another place, but it's just gone. It's just eliminated as soon as you put the light in, as soon as the sun shines in. So this is also the idea here. So no matter how long it was dark, so no matter how long we are accustomed and familiar with the cliches, and from Buddhist point of view, we had them since beginningless time, still they are removable totally in every moment or instance. And but for that, we need the eye of wisdom, or we need the understanding of emptiness. And that, of course, will be properly explained in the 9th chapter, where that is the main topic. But to be able to do so, as I said earlier, first we need the the training on the relative truth, the right conduct like generosity, discipline, patience, the diligence. And then we need the meditation like shamatha and bodhichitta, tonglen, and all of that, just to bring the mind in the right atmosphere. And then the wisdom can be developed and hosted in that mind. And that will be then chapter 9. And so here Shantideva is asking, where will you dwell in order to be able to injure me again? But weak-minded, okay, that comes later. So here Shantideva is still asking, so where will they then dwell, these kleshas or the darkness? And yes, as I said, with the darkness, likewise with the kleshas, there is no place, where they can stay and wait, The kleshas will not go outside the mind somewhere and wait and then come back. And they will not have any hiding place in the mind and then strike again. And of course, from the wisdom point of view, they have never been actually there, from the first place. They have always been just a fleeting or like a very impermanent, fragile, delusion that is now dispelled. So therefore, there is no space where they can hide. Sorry. Okay. And then, and Shantideva is here saying that, but because he was so lazy or because he was weak or idle, he didn't invest much effort. And therefore, he didn't really overcome the kleshas so far. So therefore, the kleshas are still there. That is the idea here. Okay, and now comes actually something like this is really a little bit Vipassana like, there we apply wisdom in verse 47, and this is like an analysis, and this is also a quite long verse. This you can also find in Mahamudra or Dzogchen texts, or in meditation instructions, where you're really checking, where are the kleshas, where are they coming from, where are they going, where are they abiding? And I think that is very much advised to really do that, because just intellectually thinking of it, this will not help much. But really, without any like preformed answer, just looking into the mind, and watching what is happening in the mind when a klesha is coming, when a klesha is abiding, or when a klesha is dissolving, where is that happening and how is it happening and why is it happening, and what color, form, shape, texture, taste, smell the kleshas have, all these things we can ask. So Shantideva here is asking if these disturbing conceptions do not exist within the object, the sense organs between the elsewhere. So here Shantideva is trying to find the where, the location of the kleshas. As I said, that we will go now through it like point by point, but it's good to really meditate on that. That is then the vipassana, So first we can ask, are the kleshas found in the external objects? And yes, the answer, of course, is no. And there can be many reasons for it. For example, the kleshas will also arise without external objects, Just if you lay down and close your eyes, then you can still have kleshas. Marina, yeah, it's exactly coming. You know, it's like body, mind, between, outside. All of that will be checked. So here we first look. You know, are these kleshas outside? You know, on objects, and so since we can have kleshas without external objects, the external objects can't be the location for the kleshas, and that can't be the cause, of course. Because if they would be, if the kleshas would be on the outer objects, then everybody who would come across that specific outer object would have the same klesha, you know. So like this bottle of water, if kleshas would live on that, then everybody who would see the water would have a klesha. But that's not the case, you know. Some they maybe have a lot of desire towards the water because they're very thirsty, or some maybe have aversion to the water because they have been drinking so much already. Whatever, you know. So we have all different reactions to them. So therefore, the kleshas and the objects can't be one. And also the outer objects, actually, when we analyze with Madhyamika and then also with Vipassana, we will find that the outer objects, of course, any true existence. You know, there's not even one atom of true existence in outer objects. You know, so therefore, if there's no atom, no material base, there can also not be any klesha dwelling there. That is sort of the idea. And then we can also ask here, Shantideva is asking, oh, maybe then the kleshas there live or they dwell in the sense organs, but that of course can't be the case either, because the same logic, you know, we all have sense organs, you know, and if the kleshas would be like connected with the sense organs, then we would always have, as long as we have sense organs, we would always have the kleshas. Like, and that is definitely not the truth. You know, when we, for example, study the truth or meditate on the truth, we still have the sense organs, but not necessarily the kleshas. And again, the same logic as before. Also, the sense organs also don't have any atom of true existence. So therefore, they also can't be a dwelling place of the kleshas. So this is used, you know, to in terms of different possibilities here. And also we can think, yeah, maybe the kleshas in between the outer objects or the sense organs, but that of course is also not possible. It's just space there, you know, and space is also empty. And then the last thing we can ask here, for example, elsewhere, could it be maybe in the consciousness? You know, that is normally, of course, what we think the kleshas are in the consciousness. But then again, we can have consciousness without kleshas. So like the nature of consciousness is not klesha, because otherwise, if it would be klesha, then the consciousness would always have kleshas. But that is not the case, you know. Again, when we like study the truth, like the Dharma, we have a consciousness, but not necessarily kleshas. But also the consciousness has no dwelling place and also no true existence, and there's also no atom where the kleshas could dwell on. So therefore, also in the consciousness, we can't really find a klesha. But that again is good to really do in meditation, that you really look into your mind. And maybe like Mingyu Rinpoche is doing that also in some instructions. You know, it's good to maybe then produce some kleshas in your meditation and really look, you know, where do they come from? Where do they dwell? Where do they dissolve to? Okay, here's one question. Yeah, he's basically asking, usually we have the tendency, you know, if there's an emotion arising, for example, anger in our mind, we follow it, maybe we even act upon it, and then later we regret it, or we wonder, why did we do that? And of course, the answer is because that is a habit, you know, that is a habit that we always follow the klesha. Or you know, like I think the example, this will come also later, but this applies here. You know, that is our habit. You know, we are like the dog. You know, if you throw a klesha, like a stone or a stick, then the dog is chasing after it. You know, and running to it. You know, to the klesha and getting entangled in it, following it. But the lion is doing it differently. You know, the lion is not running after the klesha, running after the perceived objects, but is, you know, if you throw a stone, the lion is then running towards you, the one who threw the stone. So the lion is more than going towards the mind, you know, where the klesha is coming from, you know. And then if the lion is then killing you, then no more stone will be thrown. Right? So likewise, if the lion like running towards the person who threw the stone, that means the lion is then looking into the nature of the mind, and then no more kleshas can arise. So that is the point here. That is a meditation. So yes, that is because that is our really beginningless tendency, you know, that that kleshas look so tempting and that we get entangled in them again and again, that we follow their stories, that we let them distract us and confuse us. That is samsara, and that is our tendency, yes. And to avoid it is first to understand the process, do analytical meditation and intellectual understanding like what we're doing here, but then of course also put that into practice and really look into it, you know, and then try to undo that habit. For example, if then a klesha comes in your mind, and as I said, you can even intentionally create it in the meditation, then if it comes into your mind, then just watch it, you know, that is a awareness on in the meditation. You just watch it without getting entangled into it. That is really possible. Genau, genau. I'm starting to speak German, you know, like if you have pain, you know, or suffering, then you can just watch it without really getting entangled into it, you know, and getting like berserk or panicky about it. So we can just observe pleasures like a movie, you know, that is totally possible. And then if we have that gap towards the kleshas, that is super important, because then we don't have to follow them, we don't get entangled into them, and we don't have to act upon them. So that is, of course, the idea. You know, we try to create that gap or distance to the kleshas, so that if we see them as there and us here. Of course, everything happens in the mind, but as a method, it is helpful, you know, to not identify with the kleshas, but to look at them from a little bit far away, you know. That is the better thing to do. Okay, I hope that answered something, but that will come a little bit also. So here again, then where do they exist and how do they harm the world? We really ask, you know, how can they create all these disasters and problems, you know, in our lives, in the world? if we conclude that actually they don't have a dwelling place, there's no location where we can locate them, where we find them. And here that again is a very meditative approach, to understand that they're really like an illusion, they're like a movie that is happening in our mind, just like an appearance that comes and goes, no problem. And therefore there's no need to be afraid of them or to be attached to them. But the only thing what we need is the wisdom, to see the nature of these negative emotions. That is all we need, They come like a hallucination, they come like a mirage, they come like an illusion, and they only come and arise because of certain causes and conditions, and then we can perceive them. But then we can also see with wisdom that they're empty by nature. And so if we find that gap, in our mind without getting entangled into the emotions, then that is our only chance, to not follow them, but to really see with a clear mind, where do they come from? How do they come from? Why do they arise? Where do they dwell? How do they dwell? What color, what shape, and so on. And then also, where do they go? So that is sort of this, instead of being a dog, who's chasing the emotions, here we are just more like a lion, we're going to the source, to the mind, where that emotion is arising in or from. And also we then see that emotions come and go, and therefore we can also be less afraid of them, and we can be more relaxed and be more happy, Emotions just come and go. That is not a big deal. Actually, Kanto Rinpoche is saying, during like 24 hours of a day, we have so many thoughts and so many emotions, but actually most of them we let go, They're not really getting stuck in our mind. We are not getting really stuck in them, but they come and go. So we're actually quite good in letting them go. And then some, yes, some they got stuck, some get solid, some get important. But of course, we have the ability to be flexible with them and not get entangled in them. Most of the time we do that actually, she is saying. And so we can also do that more consciously, And for that, of course, we need some effort. We need some courage. We need some diligence. We need to get rid of the laziness that Shantideva mentioned in verse 46. And yeah, we need this eye of wisdom that was also mentioned in 46. And by that, we realize the emptiness of emotions. Does that make sense? If not, we come already, or even if it makes sense, we come, yeah, not yet, but soon we come to the last verse then of today already. Here's one question. No, just a yes. So here Shantideva is concluding verse 47 with, for no real reason, why should I suffer so much in hell? So there's not really a good reason why we suffer in hell or also as a human being, Because, why? Because the cliches are empty by nature, so they're not real. So there's not really a reason, But still there are a cause, there are a reason why we end up in hell. But they are not a real reason, They're just a illusory reason or illusory cause, that brings us in hell. And of course, the suffering in hell are also only illusory. And also, I think Tsongtse Khyentse Rinpoche was saying there's also not a real reason that should stop us, to try to understand emptiness and needlessly suffer in lower realms. So there's also no real reason why we should not try to do shamatha and vipassana. Okay, here's one question. what if some of the cliches are like bad horror movies? I think many of them are, yes. And if they keep coming up and you feel like you're stuck in the movie theater seeing a movie you don't want to see over and over again, will the bad movie stop at some point? Of course. That is also from a Mudra point of view. If you don't nourish these movies or emotions, and if you don't feed them, if you don't put your attention in them, but if you just ignore them by just watching what is happening, they will dissolve, definitely. Because you nourish them, you keep them alive if you get entangled in them, if you think they are important. So yes, the more you understand that they are just movies, then they will dissolve, they will stop, or they will be less solid, they will be more weak. Then it's much more workable. How Trungpa Rinpoche would say. Yes, that is the whole idea, of meditation. Because we apply awareness, and non-destructiveness, then they will not be nourished anymore, But if you are confused and distracted, then this is the fuel, the nourishment, the food for the emotions, and then they are strong and come back again. But if we're not giving them distraction or confusion, but if you're just watching them with awareness, then they will dissolve more and more. The difference here between shamatha and vipassana is the question. Yes, shamatha is more about calming the mind and making the mind clear. And then vipassana is then using that calmness and clarity to investigate, to have more insight, to analyze. And yes, often, as you ask further, the topic of investigation analysis is emptiness, but not necessarily. You can also analyze that everything is impermanent, or that everything is compounded, or that everything is suffering instead of happiness. You just with shamatha, you have this calm, clear, single-pointed mind, undistracted. That's already super good. And then your mind is really usable. Then you can use it for whatever. For example, for vipassana. And then, as I said, you then contemplate, you analyze, or you just look more on the empty nature of things. Yeah. So it is often about emptiness, but not necessarily. But emptiness is sort of the best object to apply vipassana to. Okay, then the last verse for today, 48. Therefore, having thought about this well, I should try to put these precepts into practice just as they have been explained. So these precepts or instructions, we have to put into practice. Of course not, we don't have to. But if we want to get rid of the emotions or be less entangled in them, then we have to put them into practice. So yes, so of course in Buddhism there's never a have or must. It's only like if, then that kind of idea. If you don't want to suffer, then you have to give up ego clinging. That's it. If you don't mind suffering, then you can keep your ego clinging. If you don't mind confusion and samsara, yes, you don't have to meditate. But if you want to overcome it, you have to meditate. Okay, here's one question. But often, then I do not react or follow my emotions. I become like a potato, like Rinpoche once said. How not to become like a potato in everyday life? On a cushion, it is more or less easy, I feel. But in action every day is so difficult. Or I feel I become very slow. I cannot react at that point. Yes, the slowliness is the first thing that happens. Yes, it takes some time. But then but then because we need at the moment more effort, to be calm and clear and to create the gap. And so therefore at the beginning there is loneliness, yes. But then it becomes more and more natural with the training, and then yeah, then it's more automatic thing, and then it's getting faster. But of course, meditation is not about becoming a potato or something. Because a potato, yes, the good thing about a potato, it is free of emotions, but it's also sadly free of wisdom and awareness and clarity and compassion and all of that, right? So therefore, yes, of course, we don't want to become a potato, but we want meditation so that we don't have these negative emotions. And if we are free of negative emotions, then for the time being, I can say we have more chance to have the positive emotions. Like just a term, for now. So we can have more compassion, we can have more respect, we can have more empathy, we can have more wisdom because we have less emotions. So we become like a potato in the sense of, yes, we don't have negative emotions like a potato, perfect. But then we're not getting stuck there. But because we don't have negative emotions, all the good qualities can manifest. That is the whole idea. Because usually the good qualities, they are sort of covered by these negative emotions. And so therefore, yeah, it's good here to apply all these different instructions and precepts. And I mean, the whole precepts, sort of, or the whole practices can be subsumed into the threefold higher training, like training of discipline, meditation, and wisdom. Shila, samadhi, and prajna. This is really like the three things that need to be applied. And that is the basic instructions, and you can subsume all other practices into these three, lakpa sum, the three trainings. You can subsume generosity and discipline and patience into shila, into that practice of shila. And then we have into the second training of samadhi, we can subsume the fifth parameter of meditation. And then in the third training of prajna, we can subsume the parameter number 6, the wisdom. And then diligence, the fourth parameter, is good for all these three trainings. And also, like, it's called shila, samadhi, prajna, so discipline, meditation, and wisdom. But you can also call it view, meditation, and action, or in the right order here. Then action is shila, meditation, and view is the wisdom. So this is all all the Buddha was teaching about, those three. And if we ignore these instructions of the Buddha, of the doctor, the doctor, and the Buddha is sometimes in the sutras referred to as the doctor, then, yeah, of course, how will a patient in need of cure be healed by his medicine? If we are, if we have a sickness, which are the cliches here, and then we have the omniscient doctor, the Buddha, and then he is prescribing us the medicine, the Dharma. Then, with all the medicine, it's always the same. they work best if you really take them, you know. And it is not enough to get the prescription, you know, and I don't know, put it on your fridge, and that will not cure you. And also, it will not help if you even give the prescription to the pharmacy and don't get the medicine back. That will also not cure you. And also, it will not help, you know, if you get the medicine from the pharmacy, but then put it on the table and not take it, you know. So I'm just saying, you know, so the only way Buddha's medicine works, the Dharma works, if we really apply it. And that means if we really practice the instructions, that is the taking of the medicine, and then the sickness, the cliches or samsara or ignorance will be eliminated, and then that is the liberation. But if we are not applying, if you're not taking the medicine, that means we are not practicing. And I'm not talking about formal practice, you know, just applying the instructions. You know, it can be in the bar, it can be in the disco, it can be in the concert, it can be even having a beer or worse things. If you take the medicine, you know, then what's the immediate or not? I forgot. Yeah, so if we take it, then we are getting free of the sickness and attain liberation. If we are not taking it, then of course the sickness continues, samsara continues. And so far, at least when I look at myself, yeah, I'm still having that sickness, you know. That means I didn't apply the medicine properly yet. Maybe I didn't understand it properly, you know, or maybe I didn't understand the seriousness of my sickness properly yet. So that, of course, is all important, you know. Like also in normal medicine, you know, if the patient doesn't understand that he's actually suffering, he will not take the medicine, you know. Like I worked with diabetes patient for a long time, and yeah, in the beginning they don't have much suffering, you know. We just maybe we may notice in a blood result that they have high blood sugar, so they have diabetes, but they're not suffering yet, you know. So we have to create the knowledge and understanding in that patient, you know. Yes, unfortunately you are sick, you know, you have to know the suffering. First noble truth, you know, you have to understand the suffering, and that is the first noble truth, know the suffering. And then the second noble truth, and therefore you have to abandon the causes of suffering. So that is the next step. And therefore you have, and then there's a cessation of suffering is realizable, you know, like the elimination of the disease is possible. That is also what the patient needs to understand. And then the fourth noble truth is, yeah, taking the medicine, practicing the path is the way from the suffering, out of the suffering, because we are abandoning the causes for suffering, to the cessation of the suffering. So that is really important to understand. And that is the first thing to understand. We first have to understand what is wrong with us, you know? That is so important. That's why Buddha started with that, know the suffering. And only if we know it, then we feel, you know, we have to first understand the problem, and then we feel like, yes, we want to get out of that. And actually, from the Prajnaparamita point of view, again, the law is actually the longing to get out of suffering actually implies maybe an unconscious understanding that our nature is not suffering, you know, but that suffering is removable, and that there is a place in ourselves which is free of suffering, like Buddha nature, you know. And we have the longing to get rid of that suffering, and we long to come back home, to that natural state of us. Okay. Yeah, even though now we have 5 more minutes, but maybe not start a new chapter now. Sorry, Dimitro. So that is the idea here. And yeah, so if you want any homework, and because I don't know when we will meet again, I will talk with Olga to find a good date. We try to have 2 sessions again in March. So if you want homework until then, yes, maybe contemplate on the Four Noble Truths, and also do this meditation thing, about checking where the emotions are, where they come from, where do they go, and so on. That would be really helpful to not only intellectually approach it, but really like apply it. And yeah, I know that especially from Mahamudra instructions, but also Shantideva in the 9th chapter, he's talking about for application of close mindfulness. There he's also giving more instructions, how to investigate and analyze things, how to practice Vipassana. But here is already like a preview, so that's already good, and that is already good to apply. So if you like to do that, please do so. Yeah, but also maybe we really reflect upon the Four Noble Truths, because that is what inspires us, to do the whole thing. The understanding that there is suffering, and I'm not talking about headache, but also, of course, the suffering of change, and then this all-pervasive suffering, which is more this basic insecurity. Okay, I think that's it for today, and thank you for your patience, and thank you for hopefully not needing Russian translation today. And yes, take good care and have a nice week or month, and see you in March. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.